Welcome to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, where we sit down with the people who give shape, texture, and voice to life on the North Fork of Long Island. Some are rooted here by generations, others arrived by chance or choice, but all carry with them a piece of the story. We talk about what's changing, what's worth holding on to, and the currents of history, both quiet and loud, that run through this place. I'm your host, Christopher Bianchi, and for episode 216, we sit down with Amie Sponza, actor, producer, and filmmaker, and longtime force in the North Forks arts community. Raised right here in Greenport, Amie grew up in a village whose rhythms, characters, and creative mentors helped spark her early love for storytelling. Among those early influences was Peggy Murray, whose presence and guidance played a meaningful role in shaping Amie's early connection to theater and the arts. That spark eventually led Amie to the stage and later to the screen, where she's built a career balancing performance, producing, and creative collaborations. She is also co-founder of Northeast Stage, the company behind Greenport's beloved Shakespeare in the Park, a tradition that's become a cornerstone of summers on the North Fork. Amie's work spans short films, theater productions, and more recently, life coaching, where she's drawn on her background in performance to help people navigate change with clarity and intention. In our conversation, we talk about her childhood in Greenport, the early experiences and mentors who shaped her artistic path, and how the Northeast Stage first came to life. We get into the creative balance between acting and producing, the evolution of the local art scene, and the proud moments that have defined her journey. We also explore how she brings the tools of theater into her coaching work, and what she hopes to see for the North Fork's future as both an artist and a community member. So I hope you enjoy episode 216 with Amie Sponza. This episode was recorded September 19th, 2025. Thank you so much for coming on the Floyd Memorial Library podcast today. It's really a pleasure to have you on today.
Thanks very much, Chris. I appreciate the invitation. Glad to be here.
Definitely. And can you give us a little background about yourself, where you were born and raised?
Yes, I was born in the Groton Naval Base Hospital in 1962 because my dad was in the submarine service there. And we moved around a bit because he was stationed in different places. The ones that I remember, the one I remember is Charleston, South Carolina, which is where we were prior to coming back to Greenport. I went to kindergarten and half of first grade there. And then we came back in the middle of my first grade year, and I went to St. Agnes Catholic School first through sixth grade. And then went on to Greenport High School, and from there got my Bachelor of Arts in Theater at SUNY Albany, with my junior year in England, in Loughborough University in England as a exchange student. So Greenport was, I feel, a really great place to grow up. It's the walking village, walking home from school was a safe thing to do. We did it all the time. And so I graduated in 1980 from Greenport High School.
Okay.
And the transition from going to the little, small Catholic school to the big school, Greenport High School, It felt like a big jump, and I met all these new people that were from East Marion and Orient who weren't already going to Catholic school. It was like this whole new world opened up to me, and a lot more independence, in seventh grade. But our family owns Port of Egypt Marine, so I had an early start to working.
You got started early.
Yes, yeah. We opened at 4:00 in the morning.
Wow.
So we had to get up at 3:30. That's once I really started working, which was later. But when I was probably 10 when I would go on the weekends in the afternoon, and like take the boats from the boat wash and hook them up to the, in the canal. And then I graduated to selling candy and then a pound of squid. And then eventually learned how to, do the rental process and all of that.
Did you get to meet your grandparents?
Oh, yes. Yeah. My grandmother on my father's side passed away in 1968 when I think not too long after my brother was born. And kind of part of the reason why we moved back to Greenport is because my grandfather asked my dad to come back and help him with the business. And he was pretty, distraught. She passed away from cancer. I remember little bits about her showing me how to properly wash my hands because she was a nurse. And my mom was a nurse too. And my grandfather had this house on Sterling Street in Greenport, this big house, 3-story house overlooking the water. And before we got our house that my mother still lives in on Central Avenue, we lived with them. And my Aunt Elisa had her bedroom on the 3rd floor in the attic, which was, I thought, really cool. It had kind of a winding staircase. It kind of reminded me of The Sound of Music, a little bit. And it was my grandfather. I remember in the evening he would peel apples and crack walnuts and give them to us as a snack after dinner before bed. And of course he did a lot of the teaching us how to do things properly at the fishing station. Even like how to properly sweep the floor to not make a lot of dust. So that's what I remember about him. And on my mother's side, my grandfather, George Cottrell, worked. The reason they were here in Greenport is because he went to work at Plum Island Research Lab. He was veterinarian. He was all over the place during the World War II. And before they moved here, they were in Michigan. My mom was born in East Lansing, Michigan. And he was really fun to do science projects with. He had all kinds of... He liked archaeology, too. So he would find bones, skeletons. He would take us looking for Indian arrowheads and Indian paint pots and showed us how the Indians, or the Native Americans, as we would say now, yes, would make different colors. And they would use wampum to trade. And so we learned a lot about science and social studies from my grandfather.
Yes.
Yeah.
And did your mom work?
Well, my mom was trained as a nurse. She went to nursing school in Connecticut, and my parents got married in January of 1962, and I came along in October. And then my sister came along in February of 64, and my sister Heidi came along in June of 65. So she was pretty busy being a mom. Yes. There in the beginning. My brother didn't come along until 68, and my youngest sister Karen was 1972. So there's a 10-year spread. Okay. So between my brother and my youngest sister, she did go back to work. She worked at San Simeon nursing home, and I think she was at the Eastern Long Island Hospital for a bit. But, there wasn't a whole lot of time with 5 kids in the house. No. And she also helped take care of some relatives that, my great-grandmother, on my father's side, my father's grandmother, who lived on the Port of Egypt property until she died in a little bungalow, which isn't there anymore. That's where the pool is now. She, in the end, was living in the house with us. I was in college by then, but they made up a bedroom in the downstairs living room for her, and she helped to take care of her, so she didn't have to go into a nursing home. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you mentioned working at Port of Egypt, but as a child, what activities would you do outside in Greenport?
Oh, yeah. So in school, as far as sports go, I did play field hockey for a short time and softball, but I was more interested in the drama club. Mm-hmm. I auditioned in 7th grade, and I didn't make it, and I was devastated. I just was distraught. So in 8th grade, they had auditions early because they chose George M. as the musical, and we needed to learn to tap dance. So auditions were in the fall, and I was determined, and I got in. I was in the chorus, and I just fell in love. I was in my happy place, mm-hmm. learning to tap dance and being part of this big group, and then, just the joy of performing and having the audience reaction. It was sort of the light bulb. I had done some school plays in St. Agnes, but they were like Christmas pageant kind of things. But I was always making believe as a kid, playing dress up with my sisters. And so drama club was huge for me. I was from then on, I was in every show. And I also ended up being a co-editor of the yearbook our senior year. There were 3 of us, Joanne Taman, who is no longer with us, and Gal Watson. The 3 of us did it together. And we were a tight group. Our class of 80, had 80 students graduate. Easy to remember. And I remember early days walking home from school and stopping at Paradise Sweet Shop for French fries with gravy and a vanilla smash. I can remember sitting in those booths, which it's now Frisky Oyster, but it was very much the soda shop. Mm-hmm. It hadn't changed that much from when our parents used to go there. And we'd go to the arcade. And there was a point where across from Mitchell Park, that whole area there, was Grant's department store. They had a soda fountain too, I think. And I don't remember Mitchell's that well, but I was in there maybe a couple of times, but I wasn't that familiar with it. Though I do remember walking to go to the movie theater, and it was fun. We'd stop at the cigar store where they had penny candy. And
was that Matosha's?
Yeah, Matosha's. Yeah. Yes. And we'd get penny candy to take with us to the movies. And I don't know, went from 25 to 50 cents. And being in that massive downstairs theater, which is now 3 theaters downstairs, was, it was the screen. It really took you to another world. And then when I got older and had a date and was in the balcony, well, that was its own kind of special. Wow. And I do remember when St. Peter's Lutheran Church, they had the drive-in movie theater. Okay, and yes. My aunt, Elisa, took us to see Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs at the drive-in. I remember we were in our pajamas to go see it. And they had like a swing set and like a little bit of a playground in front of the screen there. That was fun. And I remember when they used to have the German festival too. That was a big deal at the Lutheran Church. Okay. In October they would have like an Oktoberfest, a German fest. That was a big draw for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the film, but were there any other places you could go to out here that for theater to see Plays?
Well,
Or...
North Fork Community Theater, yes. In fact, when I was 14, I was eligible to go and be part of the Youth on Stage summer play, and I did that. My first one was Little Mary Sunshine, and then the next year was Once Upon a Mattress. So I did that summer of 14 and summer of when I was 15. And when I was 16, the East End Arts Council sponsored an improv class at, which it's now an antique store. It's behind the Hummel's Plumbing store, that
Okay.
building
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the building. Adams, is it an Adams Street building? I forget. But anyway, that's where it was held.
Yeah.
And it was taught by Peg Murray. And Peg, at the time, was in All My Children, the soap opera that I watched. So she was this famous actress. Come to find out, she also won the Tony Award for Cabaret in 1967.
Wow.
And I felt like I was in the presence of a star, really, the way she carried herself and how much knowledge she had. And I felt like, I'd found a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
So we did this summer improv thing, and I think she did it for a couple of summers. And it was popular enough that I think she carried it once, she carried it into the fall. And Lee Pufall, who is now Lee Harned, is an artist. She was the art teacher in Greenport High School at the time, and my neighbor. And she said, after seeing our little showcase at the end of the program, we would showcase and invite family and friends. And she said, you should really do a full-length production. And she said, I will go and apply for grant money so we can pay Peg. She's a professional. We have to pay her for her time and her skill. And so we did that. And the first show we did was in 1983, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Oh, no, sorry, not 1983. That's when we formed our 501c3. No, it was the summer of 81, I think. Yeah. You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and I played Lucy. And my sister was Sally, and her boyfriend was Linus. And there was a whole group of us that were very active in the drama club that got to work with her. And one of my sister Heidi's classmates was Peppermint Patty, and Ron Rock was Charlie Brown. And here's the influence Peg Murray has. She wanted to tighten up the transitions in the show. So, because one of the things she used to tell us is, once you start, never let the audience have time to think about what they had for dinner. You got to keep it going, like a little train.
Yes.
Just keep going. So she reached out to Charles Schultz and his estate, to get permission to make some additions to make it flow better. And not only did he say yes, he sent her an autographed original print of Lucy and Linus.
Wow.
Signed, addressed to her and framed, which she has given to me. It's hanging in my house. Yeah. So that was exciting. And from there, she started doing some Shakespeare. We did Midsummer Night's Dream with Nancy Baxter, providing the original music. She also, the following year, we did Twelfth Night, and Nancy's husband, Joe Townsend, was in it as well. And it was set in South Wold, and she made reference to Peconic Bay, the shipwreck happened here. So the Peconics and the bays, and she made reference to all of those local places to give it a little more interest for local people. And then she adapted Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass and called it Song of Ourselves. And then Mark Twain's work and created Mississippi Mud, which we did at Dave Markell's barn in Southold. She also wrote Constitution Now, which was a celebration of the anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. And she combined Alice in Wonderland and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and it's called Alice in Washington. And I got to play Alice.
Wow.
So that was
really
fun.
cool.
So she liked to take current events and current newsworthy subjects and raise awareness through theater. She had an incredible influence on me. Enough that, she's the reason Northeast Stage exists and why I'm still leading it. We decided, because at first we were Greenport summer players, and we decided we needed to apply for our own 501c3 nonprofit status, and we renamed it Northeast Stage. In 1983, we got approval in September, and we've been going strong. There were a few years where there wasn't a show, whether it was because Peg had a job in the city and she couldn't get away to do it, or I was having babies and didn't apply for money. Didn't have the time and the energy to do it. But it's been pretty consistent for over 40 years.
And you said it was 1983 that it was started.
Yeah.
But was that while you were still in college?
Yes.
Because you said you graduated in 1980.
Yeah, and from college in 1984.
Okay.
So the 82-83 school year, I was in England.
Okay.
And I was writing to her, she was writing to me, and there were other people that, other adults who were producing at that time. I didn't start producing until later on. Peg was a tough taskmaster, I would say. She had high standards and had no reservations about letting people know when she wasn't happy with something. And that rubbed people the wrong way in some cases. For me, I had skin in the game. I knew I was going to be working with her. I was going to get some kind of plum roll. And so it was worth it to me to get out there, pound the pavement, raise the money, sell advertising, raise awareness, and get the benefit, receive the benefit of working with her, and for the community to have the benefit of the experience.
Yes.
To have somebody with that caliber of knowledge and professionalism to be exposed to that, I felt really lucky.
Mm-hmm. And were you interested in coming back to Greenport at that time, studying closer to New York City?
Yeah, well, once I graduated from college, and actually the summer I came back from England, I told my father, I'm sorry I can't work at the marina this year. I have to learn how to waitress because I'm going to be going to New York after I graduate. He wasn't too happy about that. But I did.
I have my own path.
Yes, yes. Yeah. I was determined. Mm-hmm. And so I went to work for Mitchell's, which at the time was a 2-story restaurant where the kitchen was downstairs and the restaurant seating was upstairs.
Okay.
It was where the skating rink part is now. It was right overlooking the water. So it was good because it got me in shape after being in England and having all those carbs. Got me in shape. And then my senior year, college finished out, and I was home for the summer to do another show with Peg. And then I moved to the city in the fall. And I was there from the fall of 84 to the spring of 89. But every summer I sublet my apartment and came home to do a show with Peg. And I would say I probably did more waitressing than theater in New York at that time. Because, you know, they teach you the art and the craft of acting in college, but they don't teach you the business. You kind of learn that by the seat of your pants.
Yes.
And, you know, and now there's so much more information available. Mm-hmm. And I think in some ways easier to learn the business now because there's so much online. You don't have to be in New York to learn it. And there are so many other areas where performers can get work. I mean, Atlanta's huge now. Mm-hmm. This is all over the country. There are incentives for theater.
But what did you think of New York City at that time between the...
Oh, well, I lived on West 54th between 9th and 10th, which is Hell's Kitchen.
Okay.
And it was still Hell's Kitchen, right? Mm-hmm. And now it's very, it's been gentrified, if you will. It's been given a facelift. I mean, maybe it's fallen down again since, but when I left, there was already evidence of, you know, the World Towers had gone up mm-hmm. on 9th, and there was like a little restaurant across the street from our building, which had never been there. We were next to an auto body shop, you know, so it was a little rough. It wasn't as rough as it was in the 70s, you know. Mm-hmm. Certainly Disney had moved into 42nd Street, so that was all fine.
Yes.
8th Avenue had its areas that were still a little bit iffy. But I know how relieved my mother was when I moved out because I would walk home from a waitressing job with a pocket full of cash because I didn't want to spend the money on a cab. I'm lucky I never, knock wood, never got into trouble that way. I worked in a variety of restaurants because every time I came back, I would start fresh. The last couple of restaurants, I worked at the Copacabana when it was over near Central Park, and I worked for Chita Rivera had a restaurant on 42nd, way over on the west side, and so I worked for her. Her sister ran it. I think that was the last one I was at. But I moved home because it was 5 years. I had given myself 5 years. And I'd also been seeing the same guy since 1986. So by 1989, I was like, all right, TikTok, I'm ready. Let's go. Yeah. And we got engaged in June of 89, got married in March of 1990. And in the fall of 1990, I had agreed to assist the director for the Greenport High School musical, and then was called in by the principal, and who told me the director has had to bow out. He can't do it. Are you willing to take it over? So I said yes. And I chose Godspell as my first endeavor as a director. And having all the tutelage from Peg, I had the courage and the experience to do that. And I also asked Nancy Lee Baxter to be my musical director because I don't read music. I can sing, but I don't read music. So she agreed, and I would, thinking back on all the musicals I directed after that, it might have been the best. Maybe it was just my gung-ho, enthusiasm, or maybe it was the nature of the show, but we had a wonderful ensemble of actors, including the Doherty Johnson twins, Poppy's children,
Yes.
who were just wonderful to work with. They were so willing, and Fred Miner and his band were our orchestra. We didn't have an orchestra, we had a band, and they were on stage, and it was, I think, really well received. So that was the beginning of 16 or 17 high school musicals that I directed.
Wow.
I did 16 in a row. No, sorry. I did 13 in a row, and then a teacher wanted the job, and teachers get first preference.
Mm-hmm.
And then she left to get married, so the following year I came back and did a couple more. And now Erica Tuttle Cabral, who was cast in 8th grade by me as the lead Winifred in Once Upon a Mattress, went on to get her degree in teaching music and came back and is now directing the plays. So it's like full circle, and it's what a pleasure to see that, because my inspirations, before meeting Peg, Patricia Wall was the director, and Russell Wells, our music teacher, was the music director. So, he would teach the music, the songs, and she would direct and block the shows. And they were quite a team. And Robert Wiltsey was always the producer. And he would just rev everybody up to get out there and sell tickets and sell ads in the program. I kind of learned a lot about what it takes to put on a show from them as well, before I even met Peg. And so that inspiration, that love of the craft, it's had a ripple effect, from them to me, and from me to the kids that I worked with, and now they're inspiring another generation, and I just think it's great. Because with theater, you're part of a team. It may not be a sports team, but you're all working together for the same goal, and everybody gets to win. And the amount of confidence that is built in these students, kids who never thought they would get up there on stage, who are hardly opening their mouths during auditions. And I was a pretty easy auditioner for these kids, because I remember what it was like, how scary. And especially the ones who only wanted to be in the chorus, I let them audition in pairs so they wouldn't feel alone, and they would boost each other. But, like guys especially are hard to get up there. Girls usually are, well, there's usually more of them. And getting the guys to come out, especially when you're in a school where everybody does everything and sports comes first. So getting kids to come out of their shell and put themselves out there and suddenly find themselves the center of attention for a different kind of reason, and loving it. And like, why didn't I do this sooner? I waited till I was a senior. I wish I had done it sooner. So I encourage anybody who's listening, if you even have the slightest thought that maybe you'd like to try it, I say go for it. And don't wait till you're a senior in high school.
Yes.
And if you're older and you've never done it, come and check it out. Go to a local theater and try it. It's fun.
Yes. And you've worked also on a number of, just over your career, short films or theater productions. Yes. It's probably hard to answer, but just, is there one of them that's the most proudest moment in your artistic career?
So, yeah, when I went, after my daughter graduated from high school and went on to college, and my son was 3 years behind, but, very set. Both kids are very independent. And I asked my husband, I said, I'd really like to go back to New York and try again. And so he supported that idea. So when I did go back, I did learn a lot more about the business. I was going to casting director workshops. I got involved in going to a place called the Actors Green Room. And they also offered a group called Create, which is the brainchild of Kristen Hange, who was responsible for Rock of Ages, wrote Rock of Ages, or directed it, I forget which, and Natalie Roy. And they would do like meditations and actor support, like all these support for us as creators. And out of that came a 72-hour film challenge, where each month for a year in 2016, there was a theme each month, and you put together a group of people who wanted to work together, and someone would write the script. You gather your actors for that script, and then over a weekend, within 72 hours, we shot the film, edited it, and turned it in. And then there would be a screening the following month of all the work that was done, and everyone would come, and we would be at a sports bar near Penn Station is where we would go. So because there were a lot of screens, so we could all watch them. So I had the idea, I wanted to work with this particular woman, Renee, and I met with her in the city when I had come in for a class, and I said, I really think you'll be inspired if you come out to Long Island with me and see the marina, the hotel. At the time, we still owned the hotel next door, and I think we can come up with something, and I think you'll be inspired. And I kind of sold her on the idea, and I'd love for you to come out. And she's like, she was interested. I said, what are you doing today? Because I have the truck, and you could come with me and then take the bus back. And she's like, oh, I don't have anything to do today. All right. So she took a ride. We talked the entire way out, the entire way back. Sorry, not the whole way out with all these ideas. She saw all the areas where we could shoot. She had an idea. She shared it with a guy who she knew was a writer. And it was a story of a young man with bipolar disorder. And we set it where he was painting, like manically painting, a picture of his father's fishing grounds. And that part was in the fishing station as the mother's art studio. And then in one of the hotel rooms was my office as the therapist for this young man. And then the father was using my husband's boat as his fishing boat. And so the mother comes and finds this painting, and the boy is not there. And so she's trying to get into my office while I'm with the client. And then we see the father going to his boat and seeing the son passed out in the boat with no clothes on and just like, what's going on, Yes. And then the resolution of them getting together, and in the end there being an art show with the paint. It's a 17-minute film.
Wow.
17 minutes. But with Renee having worked with the cinematographer was from Japan and very well known there, not so much here, and wanting to get his name. Toru Nishikobu was his name. An extraordinary cinematographer. And she felt like the sound was critical. If we didn't have good sound, people won't pay attention. They'll tune out, which was so accurate. So when we screened this, we were maybe somewhere in the middle of all the films that were being screened. And there was a lot of chit-chat during some of them. Some of them the sound wasn't very good. But when ours came on, and I also got a local singer-songwriter to provide the closing song, and it was so perfect. He won an award from the Long Island International Film Festival. We were entered in that, and 2 of the actors won, and his song won that summer, 2017. So once that film started rolling, you could hear a pin drop for 17 minutes. Everyone was riveted. And at the end of it, everyone erupted with applause. And one woman walked over and said, "I think you just saved my life." Because I have the bipolar disorder and was considering not being here anymore.
Yes.
So to me, whether that film gets out to any more people, I know it made a difference. And I also really enjoy working with Jim Morrison right here in Greenport.
His own films that he does.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's toward the tail end of COVID, and he invited me to be in Rent a Neighbor. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So being able to do that, to bring filmmaking to the area, and which, Tony Spiridakis has done as well. And I did participate in MFI one summer, and then, would revisit. I'm really glad that he did that. And some of the people that I met at the Actors Green Room ended up coming out here and being part of MFI. And I think being able to tell stories in any medium, whether it's podcasting, theater, film, poetry, songwriting, when you're sharing your story with a larger audience, people feel less alone because they know they're not the only ones going through whatever it is the story is about.
Yes.
Because really, we're all connected. We're all one. And I'm all for providing a way for people to find common ground. We're all humans to start with. That's the basic.
Yes.
We all have the same emotions. And you go back to Shakespeare, and part of why we do Shakespeare is because even after all these centuries, the themes have not changed.
No.
When if you prick us, do we not bleed? That's Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Love, jealousy.
It continues to resonate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the unrequited love and the histories with, the grasping for power and who gets to be in charge,
Yes.
I mean, those themes and those stories are eternal. And so, a lot of the way that Peg adapted Shakespeare was to add in the local flavor. She would cut anything that was extraneous because she wanted the audience to pay attention and to not be left wondering what did they say? Like she would modernize the language so that people wouldn't get lost and miss the next 10 lines because they were trying to figure out what that was just said.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So she was not a purist. Mm-hmm. She wanted the story to be told, and always adding music to everything because she came from a musical background and she had an incredibly powerful voice. And she did write her memoirs and took them to a publisher, and the publisher wanted her to add more sex and more gossip. And she said no. So that book never got published, but it has been left to me. And I was able to do a documentary film interviewing her about her life before she passed away. It was shot we interviewed her in October of 2019, showed it to her on her birthday, February 14th of 2020. And in March, everything shut down before I had a chance to have its premiere at Peconic Landing. She was in there, and by November, she was gone. So I have the documentary film and her book, and my intention is to put them out together eventually. It's a project.
But could you talk a little bit about how the Shakespeare in the Park started with Northeast Stage?
Yes, well, that started with Peg, and I think, I want to say it was somewhere around 95, 96, before Mitchell Park was what it is now. We did like in the corner of the park there, we performed. I remember that. I remember having these 4x8 platforms set up in the middle of the park, and Paul Creeling creating this like sail thing that during the night got blown over. Stuff went into the drink. It was like, what were we thinking leaving this up overnight in this windy harbor town, right? And we learned, and part of why we're on the boardwalk now is because it gets damp at night, and then it's slippery, and the actors are, slipping around on the stage, and it's not safe. So that's part of why we flipped it. But when it was under construction, one summer, we played Fifth and Sixth Street Park. Yes. We did Love's Labor's Lost there. Between the trees, we set up our platforms between the trees. So the actors were hanging. The boys were like hanging in the trees. It was kind of cool. And that was also the year that we had guest actors, local people as the queen or the king who was starting the play off. The South Old Town supervisor at the time was I think it was Gene Cochran, I want to say. Okay. I think.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So we had different guests come to be the queen for the day. So yeah, that's where it started. Okay. I think like I said, there were a couple of years where, for whatever reason, it didn't happen, but and at some point, and I'd have to look back in the archives to see what year we just started continually doing it. But we also added locations. I think it was Laurie Devlin who said, "You should bring it to Patchogue." I was like, all right, let's do that. Yeah. So we went to Patchogue first, and then we went to East End Arts Council behind in Riverhead. Now we're in Grangemill Park, which I think is even better because it's more it's more inviting, I think. Plus, there's construction going on behind East End Arts. And then I got a call from Lou Antoniello from Terryville, Port Jeff Station, who said they have been wanting Shakespeare for years and will we please come. And then last year, when we were in Riverhead, I was approached by Helen Simonson of West Hampton Beach to please come there. So we had this summer at Othello over 200 people in the gazebo park across from the library. Wow. That was incredible. Yeah. For our first time. Yeah, it was packed. Yeah. So we're looking forward to All's Well That Ends Well next. summer.
Nice.
Yeah.
And just looking at from the 90s to today, how do you think just the North Fork, even Greenport, how the art scene has evolved?
Well, I think there's always been a pretty strong arts community out here. Certainly painter artists and musicians. And, with North Fork Community Theater. And for a while, I think Pocatuck Hall had a group in Orient. So I think there's always been a presence. And as funny as it sounds, after over 40 years, there are still people who don't know Northeast Stage exists because we don't have a theater. We don't have a building, which is a pro and a con. We don't have the overhead that they have in Mattituck, but we don't have the visibility either.
Yes.
So, and we've been blessed that Holy Trinity Church has welcomed us ever since the beginning, and has been wonderful about hosting us and making their space available to us. I'm very grateful for that. And the addition of the Norfolk Arts Center and Josh Sapan working with Tony Spiridakis and his whole group, I'm thrilled because the more there is, the more there is.
Yes.
Just like if you have a lot of restaurants, the more restaurants you have, the more people you have coming to the area to go to restaurants because there's a lot to choose from. Like people go to Restaurant Row in the city because there's a lot of choice.
Yes.
Right.
The more the merrier, more the better.
Yeah. It's and we know that the arts bring business.
Yes.
It's just you start bringing art into a community and everything starts getting raised up. You see it over and over again. So
yes.
Keep funding the arts, people. We need you.
Definitely. Also, you're a life coach.
I am.
Could you talk a little bit about that and what that entails?
So my brother noticed that I was feeling less than fulfilled at work at the marina. He said, "You're clearly not happy. You should go figure out what it is that's going to make you happy." Because after COVID and everything, I really didn't want to keep going back and forth to the city. And since then, my daughter had gotten married. And now I have a grandchild. I'm so excited. Yeah, a little grandson. So my focus, I knew, was going to be shifting. And I wanted something flexible. And I was also helping my mom. So when I found a coach for myself and a coaching program that made a difference to me, I thought, wow, if this can work for me, I know it can work for other people. And they were offering a training program to become a coach. So I decided to say yes. Because, I wrote in my journal, I would love to be invited to be in a short film, shooting in my local area, working with like-minded creative people and being part of the creative process, in quite a bit of detail. And then I took my dog for a walk, and I got a phone call, which I didn't take because I was talking to somebody else. And I said, I better call Joe back. Joe Martinson, who grew up in Greenport too. He grew up in Orient, but high school in Greenport. He said, "Hey, Amie, I've written a film script. I'm here with the director. I want you to be in it. Can you meet with us today?" That was hours after I had written.
Yes.
Not more than 2 hours
Yes.
after I wrote that. I was like, holy cow. I just manifested that thing. So I said yes. And that film went on to win some awards. And he won an award for his portrayal of this piece that he wrote called The Clown Affair. So it feels a little bit like magic. So I started by reaching out to other creatives like me that I wanted to help, and then shifted into working with women who are navigating a change like I had been. And I love it. I love seeing the results, the women that I've worked with who've done the work have transformed from crying and pulling the sheet over their heads to deciding to become a nurse, getting a grant to go to school, and she's now in medical assistant school, which will lead to becoming a nurse. Mm-hmm. And not only is she still doing the work, like believing in herself, and the confidence that she has is through the roof. She's also reeling other people in. She's like, I cannot believe how many people I'm attracting, like-minded people to me now, because I'm in this different headspace.
Yes.
Because it's really all mindset and your perspective, because nothing is good or bad unless you think it's so. Mm-hmm. So it's about, when I think back over the years of all the things that I've manifested in my life because I believed it was possible, anything's possible if you make a decision that it is.
Mm-hmm. And do you think your theater background helps with connecting with clients in a way?
Well, yeah, because your imagination is your first tool.
Yes.
Right? When Kennedy asked a premier scientist, what's it going to take for us to get a man on the moon by the end of the decade? He said 5 words: the will to do it. So, this microphone that we're using, the table in front of us, nothing would be created unless somebody thought of it first. Mm-hmm. The design of this quilt in front of me, somebody had to think of that and choose the fabric. Somebody had to create the fabric. Nothing is here without imagination. So it all starts with asking yourself important question is, what would you love? What would I love to be, do, have, create? And flesh it out in as much detail as you can and be open to even more. Because we live in an abundant universe, and lack and scarcity are also created by our thoughts. So I'm focused now on helping high achieving professionals to reclaim their confidence and speak with confidence, whether it's one-on-one or in a boardroom or on a stage. I think I'm uniquely qualified to help people with confidence in that way.
Oh, definitely.
And my business is called Act Now Life Coaching.
Definitely. But you mentioned some future, you mentioned the next play next summer. Yeah. Are there any other exciting projects you're looking forward to?
Yeah. In fact, I just saw Mark Heidemann is going to be directing Lessons from Hollywood, which is written by a local James Pritchard. We had a stage reading of it last year, and we're doing a full-fledged production of it this year. And it will be at Holy Trinity Church in December. And we haven't landed on a spring production yet, but I'm sure there will be something. So northeaststage.org is the website to keep your eyes open on what's next for Northeast Stage and how you can get involved. We're planning workshops next spring, starting in April, where as the performers are working with the director, we're going to open up workshops for the community to see how we do things. They'll be invited to how we break down the script and what some of the grammar in Shakespeare is, what it means. And there will also be a fight call where Peter Peterson is our fight director who helps teach people how to fight with swords safely.
Okay.
He's not going to use swords in the workshop. It'll be sticks. But it's really fun.
Yeah.
And to see it being done after you know kind of the ins and outs, mm-hmm. I think a lot of young people would be interested I know whenever the kids come, when we rehearse in Mitchell Park and they're like, oh, when they see the swords come out, they just go right up to the edge of the stage and are fascinated. I think it's great.
And then a last question I had was just if growing up here and seeing Greenport and the North Fork evolve, and it's changed quite a bit, but what are your hopes for the future of the North Fork and its community down the line?
Well, change is inevitable, right?
Yes.
Change is the only constant. So, and then there's the saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right?
Yes.
What I hope as far as the arts are concerned is that people continue to recognize the benefit of arts in the community, in the school in particular, and how business and arts go hand in hand. I hope for Greenport in particular to not change too much from its nautical history so that it becomes just another souvenir shop filled place that doesn't have the unique characteristics that are still here, but are slowly being eliminated because a lot of the locals are taking the money and running and getting out of here because it's so hard to afford. And pretty soon people like the Hamptons, the workers who serve the community have to live somewhere else than where they work because they can't afford to live where they work. And, my daughter went to college in Connecticut and she ended up living in Connecticut. My son has been in the Navy and now in college. He finished college in Colorado. He's looking at the Northeast and the Southeast. He's not likely to come back here because there's the opportunity for young people to own a home is limited by whatever job they can get and how much they can make to live here. So I love it here. I'm happy I got to grow up here. I'm happy I got to raise my children here. I'm happy my daughter is bringing my grandchild here. And I have high hopes that the community will rise to the challenges to keep the rural nature and the open space that we have as much as possible while allowing for growth in some capacity. It's a challenge.
No, definitely. It is a challenge. Were there any last minute things you'd like to say or discuss that we haven't touched on?
Wow, we covered a lot of ground. I might be competing with my father for time here. I think I could sum it up by take care of where you live, and it will take care of you. Take care of the people in your neighborhood, and they'll take care of you. And nurture the nature around you as well, you know, because, what do they say? Don't crap where you eat.
I know.
We need our farms. We need clean water for the fishing to thrive and
that balance.
Yeah, that balance. Harmony and balance. I talk about that often, where balance is stasis, and when you're in balance, nothing's moving. Like the seesaw, it's fun when you're going up and down, right?
Yeah.
When you It gets kind of boring when you just sit there across from each other. Mm-hmm. And like a jazz band, it's great when everyone's in harmony and you're making beautiful music together. But each instrument often gets its chance to shine. Drum solo, guitar, bass solo, piano solo, each gets their moment to shine and then come back together in harmony. And I think that's a beautiful way to look at life. Fill your life with everything that makes it in harmony and be present with each area of your life when you're in it.
Definitely. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today and share your story and all the work you've done and continue to do within the arts and bringing important theater and production out here. It's important for the North Fork. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Well, I hope you enjoyed episode 216 with Amie Sponza. I want to thank you for listening to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, and we'll see you next time.